Hey, what's going on, 0499 fans? It's your boy MusiqNerd, and this is my reaction to the football weekend that was Miami football, both Dolphins and Hurricanes. Now, usually I would do this a little bit earlier, but I was out of town for the holiday, and also, too, with both losing, I wanted to collect my thoughts, and also I wanted to wait till the CFP rankings came out to have like a true reaction and a true end. So first we'll do the Dolphins. We'll go from bad to worse, and then we'll kind of sum up the Hurricane seasons here. So the Dolphins just really when it came out to um, hmm, really what it was, they got that first stop, and then they gave up the fumble on the punt return, and then like I knew then it was over. And then me and my brothers were kind of like texting. As soon as that happened, that was over. All they got out their rhythm, and the game was pretty much done from then, in my opinion. Tua, while he had great numbers, was off a little bit throughout the game when it was close. So they were able to kind of fight back a little bit, and they did not quit and everything. But you know the narrative about playing teams over 500, playing in cold weather, what concerns me more is about like really kind of this team, the way it's built. It's not really built for the cold. It's not really built for those type of things. You have to, when you're in cold weather, you got to run with bigger backs. You got to be able to do that. Miami is a finesse team, and while they stick with that, and I like they're going in that direction, that's what they stick with. So the Dolphins, it doesn't surprise me that they lost that game. It doesn't surprise me that they really didn't put up much of a fight to it. I think they had a plan, but I think once they went to the wayward side, kind of went away. So one of the first time in like 6 games, they didn't start off very fast. And I think that's what really ended up hurting. If they start off faster, if they're able to kind of not fumble away that punt return and maybe go up 7-0 instead of being down 14-0 or however it be, maybe that game goes differently. But so, like football is a game of momentum. That's really what it comes down to. So, um, Hurricanes. That's a bit more disappointing. All right, so I mean, we've been a lot of people who've been following Hurricanes have been speaking on them, been saying for weeks, ever since we lost to Georgia Tech, you cannot put your fate of your season into the committee's hands. Miami was up 21-0 with everything to go, with a running game that ranks top 50 in the nation, with a offensive line that should be imposing, that should be an opposer's will against a defense that's not very good against the run. I don't really care that they went back at 21-7. You go back, you run down the throats, you go back 28-7. Miami, to win this game, Miami needed to run for about 200 yards rushing, in my opinion, and they only ran for about 120. That's not good enough. Had to execute on both offense and defense. Of course, on defense, they did not. Offense was okay, but just not good enough. So there's that. And then, enjoying the moment. One thing I said too, the difference between good and great teams is like when something's put ahead of you, a great team really accomplishes it. A good team doesn't, and Miami wasn't able to do that. And for that reason, and it led to what happened last night. So for those of you who don't know, Miami comes in at 12th at the final college football rankings before the conference games, before that. So the final before the final, penultimate. And really, they have no other data points to put in. They will not play in an ACC championship game, so they really have nothing else to prove out. So the committee has said that they will not really change their opinion on teams that's outside. So being them at 12th, it puts them at the first team out, basically. So something catastrophic has got to happen for Miami to get put in right now. But right now they are behind at 10-2 behind a 3-loss Alabama team. Now, while I said, and a lot of other people said Miami had to win to get in, and to get in, and a lot of people said too, a lot of people who support Miami said that if Miami didn't win, they didn't get in. I don't have a problem with that narrative. I think that Miami had it in front of them and they blew it, and we can't get in, and we can't really blame anybody else for that. My issue with this is putting in a 3-loss Alabama team ahead of Miami and then saying that the last 3 games is the reason, when Miami played a 7-win Georgia Tech team who was getting its quarterback back, who had really the only team that's played Notre Dame within a touchdown besides Louisville the last 10 weeks, and then took Alabama to 8 overtime. Alabama took Georgia to 8 overtimes. They lost to them by 5 points on the road. So that doesn't really make sense. And then, of course, they blew out Wake Forest by 4 touchdowns and then lost to a 9-win team by 4 points on their home field, who ends up being ranked, while Alabama in their last 3 games blew out Mercer, who's an FCS team, lost to a 6-win Oklahoma team by 3 touchdowns when they can only muster 3 points and 250 yards of offense, and then barely beat a 5-win Auburn team by 2 touchdowns. And you could say, oh, that's a rivalry game, but they're using the same logic to punish Miami. And then when Miami played a 5-win team, Miami blew that team out by 4 touchdowns. So you get my issue here. So and I think that Miami had its chance as well. It's like, but so did Oklahoma, so did Alabama, and they lost to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns. If it was BYU and with a 10-win team from a Power Four conference, I wouldn't be upset. I think. Ole Miss, I would be upset. South Carolina, but even if it was South Carolina, I couldn't be upset. But South Carolina lost to Alabama, so they knew they weren't going to do that. So, because how well South Carolina's been playing. Now, if you want to talk about a team that's been playing well the last half of the season, then South Carolina's probably be as hot as anybody in the nation. That I would have to deal with. Alabamians wouldn't deal with it, and that would be I think that would be the notion. I think that's why they didn't choose a team like South Carolina. But in the grand scheme of things, when you put it up for that last playoff spot, and it comes down to it, and I could break it down for you. Basically, there's about, like, we've done the math. There's about 11 teams that are pretty much guaranteed a spot. Basically, the Big 12 champion, the ACC, SMU is pretty much guaranteed a spot. 4 teams from the Big 10: Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, and Indiana pretty much guaranteed a spot. SEC has Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. So pretty much guaranteed a spot right there. So, when it comes down to it, you're fighting for one spot between Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. And I think to put in Alabama, and their reason being they have more wins against top 25 and less losses, but the thing is they have more bad losses than Miami has, the same amount of losses as Miami has. It is why we kept saying Miami had to win to get in, because you didn't want to put it in the hands of a committee like this. You didn't want to put that's just like you don't want to put a game in a referee's hands. You don't want to put your season's fate in the hands of a committee like this. It's obvious bias, it's obvious collusion, it's obvious going off for other things, But hey, at the end of the day, Miami had its chance. Miami didn't take care of it. It's a disgrace. I don't agree with it, of course. Even with everything like I said, I do think Miami is better than Alabama. I do think Miami is better than Ole Miss. I think Miami is better than South Carolina. But in the end of the day, Miami had a chance to prove it, and they didn't. And so, while I am disappointed and not surprised at the committee's choice, I do have to be, disappointed about how Miami was able to finish the season. So, right now, basically, we are just waiting for this weekend to see what happens. Really, there's not much that can change. Even if, say, Clemson beats SMU, Clemson will take that spot, I think, in my opinion. And then basically what they said, it would be SMU versus Alabama. And they may say that Alabama will get in over an 11-win SMU team, which would just be preposterous. So, it's the SEC bias, it's the Big Ten bias, and that's something that we will talk about in our next off 199th podcast, which we weren't able to do this weekend. We'll probably do it next weekend. But, hopefully y'all enjoy the season. And like, I knew I sound disappointed and everything like that, but this season was an incredible step forward. It just got announced that Cam Ward won the ACC Offensive Player of the Year and Player of the Year. Congrats to him. We got 4 first-team players, and Xavier Restrepo, Andre Borregales, Cam Ward, and Simeon Barrow. A couple other nominees when it comes to Malagoa. Both Malagoa brothers made the second team. It was a special season in a lot of ways. It's a step forward in a lot of ways, but it is the sour taste of when it ends that way. Recruiting, and when it comes to that too. So hopefully Miami can rebound a bit. They did lose a bit of traction with a couple of players when it came to this, so we lost a couple of flip targets that I think Miami was going to get if Miami would have finished a little stronger. But when it comes down to it, it's still a very good recruiting class. It's still one that we're going to need going forward, and the basis for this squad and this team, Miami is going to be, I think, a very good team going forward. I think we need to find quarterback. Emory can step up and be that quarterback for us for next year, but he only has like 2 years of eligibility left. Now you got a good quarterback on this cycle called Luke Nickel for this team, so maybe that's the future as well. Miami's foundation and base is really good. What Miami has got to focus on now is making sure that you play that pole game, you get that momentum, you try to get that. You don't want the end of the season disappointment for not making the playoff to turn into what happened to Florida State this year. You don't want that. You don't want that negativity around your program. You want to make sure that you're turning into positivity. And, there's a lot of things to be happy about. There's a lot of things to be excited about. I mean, I predicted 10-2 season. We got to that. You get disappointed when you see the team and you see how good it can be, and you see that. But really, when it comes down to it, you want the team to make strides, and this team absolutely made strides. There are a lot of games I think in years past that Miami would have lost this year that they won. A lot. There's an attitude about the program, and while I think a lot of that has to do with Cam Ward, Cam Ward was following a path laid forward for him, and I think there are a lot of things that Mario Cristobal improved on in his coaching as well. I know people are calling for his job and calling for Lance Guidry's job. In the grand scheme of things, I think Lance Guidry did not have the personnel that he wanted in the back end. That's really what I think comes down to it. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at the numbers, Miami is still a top 25 defense with everything that has happened, which is crazy, right? Miami would still ended up being a top 25 defense, and I know that's incredibly difficult to hear for people because of how they think a lot of people think the defense really costs things. It came down to it. There are a lot of plays. I think even in the Syracuse game, Miami's defense was able to get Miami an extra drive, an extra few drives, was able to get a few stops, but Xavier Shepard fumbled the ball and it got returned for a touchdown, and that changed that really changed the game. That's really the difference in the game. Sometimes things just don't work out the way that we want them to. But at the end of the day, this is a 10-2 team, 6-2 in the ACC. Fought to the end to it. I'm proud to be a Miami fan. I'm hurt to be a Miami fan as usual. And what it comes down to, what I'm loving though too is that Miami hate is back, and you can see it. Is that people are scared of what this team can be. So I think we need to start proving them wrong, because next year there won't be anything that people can say about the schedule, because the schedule is going to be very tough next year. So we're going to see it. So hopefully y'all enjoy the season. We will be seeing y'all back. We'll be trying to react to Dolphins games as much as possible. There won't be as much time with the holiday season coming up, but I will try to do everything I can to be as present as possible. Thank y'all so much for watching this season. We will be back with Off 199th later on this week. I hope y'all enjoyed your Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. Get into it and enjoy yourselves. Y'all have a good one. Peace.